The million dollar question: how do entrepreneurs transition from self-employed to owning a business that turns a profit? My name is Chris Waters, and this podcast has the million dollar answer. Welcome to CEO Secrets. Hey guys, it's Chris Waters, the host of CEO Secrets. Welcome to the podcast. I've got a very special guest on today. Today I'm going to be interviewing Rivers Pearce. And Rivers was one of the very first employees at a platform many of you are very familiar with called BoomTown. And Rivers specifically in the beginning of his career at BoomTown was managing the search engine marketing and lead generation campaigns and that respective team. And before Rivers stepped out of that role was managing 7 figures per month in budget, generating leads for real estate companies all across the United States. Rivers, welcome to CEO Secrets.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see you, buddy.
What number employee were you at BoomTown?
Number 10.
You were number 10.
Yes, sir. I moved to, I got my start in doing digital marketing about 2005. And I moved to Charleston, South Carolina in early 2010, about 10 years ago, to join this little real estate tech startup called BoomTown. 10 of us in a room, basically, like classic startup, just me running the lead gen department of one. Yeah, man. So I was number 10, and I was there almost 9 years. And, the company now has over 300 employees. So.
Let me ask you something. When you were younger and you were applying for, companies to work for,
yeah,
were you ignorant to how hard it was for a startup to succeed? Like, what is it that attracted you to BoomTown?
Well, it's a really good question. I had this really great agency job in Atlanta and was doing digital marketing, PPC, a lot of e-commerce stuff. And I wanted to move back to Charleston, South Carolina, really was what the driving factor was. And this company called BoomTown was hiring, and I was like, I'll take a chance. I really liked Greer, who the CEO, we met each other. But it was one of those things, it was, first conversations with them was late 2009. Not a good time to be in real estate.
Not at all.
I mean, we met around that time, 2010. Yep. And, but, I believed in their vision, and they, we knew it was a down market, and I felt like if this is going to work, this is the time to get in. And I knew that I could do digital marketing and advertising. I knew I could still do that, even if BoomTown didn't work out. But, I took a chance, and a lot of people thought we were nuts, but it worked. And folks like yourself and other team leaders, around the country at that time that were just they were capitalizing on the down market. I mean, you probably remember it was all REO, foreclosure, short sale. Those are only keywords I was bidding on back then, right? And that slowly tailed off as the economy came back, and we just adapted, and it kind of exploded after that.
What attracted you specifically to Greer as the CEO and founder?
Yeah, we're both South Carolina guys. We both had, just a similar kind of disposition, if you will. But I mean, he and the co-founder Cooper, they were just so passionate and steadfast in their belief that agents needed this software and this type of product. And this is, again, over 10 years ago, CRM, website, like we didn't even have an email platform at that point, right? It was just a place to manage leads. We didn't even call it CRM, it was just leads management. But we knew that it was coming. We knew that the downturn was causing a shift in the marketplace. It was causing a shift in the way agents needed to do business. I believed in their goals, and I think you've probably seen this too, that a lot of these real estate tech companies, they were aimed at disrupting the agent, right? Getting rid of the agent. That was not BoomTown ever. BoomTown believed in the agent, wanted to support the agent. We believe that agents are a part of this ecosystem, a critical part. That means that the agent counts may ebb and flow a little bit. Obviously, there's good agents and bad agents, but I think we've seen 10 years later, the agent has been far from disrupted, right? They're enabled by technology. And I really believed in that way of thinking as well.
Well, now that you're not with BoomTown and you've started your own digital marketing agency, I can ask you questions I could have never asked you before.
Okay. I'll answer if I can.
So what, when you think there's a lot of platforms out there nowadays, especially compared to 10 years ago, there's a lot of CRMs generating leads.
Yeah.
Now that you're platform agnostic to a certain degree, what is it from your perspective? I mean, you're literally the type of person that could log into a Google AdWords account, review the analytics. You can go through the social media accounts, review analytics. Like, you understand how all of that works.
Yeah.
So, should, number one, if somebody is, got a real estate business, they're generating leads for their operation, should they rely on these platforms to generate leads for them, or should they hire an external company to create the leads and build the campaigns and drive the traffic to the website versus trying to be a technology company and a lead generation company?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Number one, I am a firm believer in companies like BoomTown, Commissions Inc., Chime, like those companies that are offering an end-to-end suite. They've built the front-end website with conversion in mind, right? With visitor to lead, sign up conversion in mind. They usually, from my experience, are going to be the best at driving traffic to their own platform, right? When I've seen people use a third party to drive traffic into a BoomTown platform, for example, it's typically not as strong from a visitor to lead conversion rate perspective. So I'm an advocate that let them manage some of that lead gen budget, especially for if your team is plugged into a platform like that and they're depending on those leads. I think that's the best use of that budget. I don't think it should be all of it, though, right? I think it's your paid advertising budget for that platform or for that team. I think the real value, though, comes into the CRM database side of any of these platforms. That is Sphere, right? That's database, that's your network, whatever you want to call it. But I think that there are things that should be doing other lead generation activities, whether it's organic social media content, events, when we can actually have events again, open houses, things like that. Obviously, those are more subjective to your specific business. I think those should be done by, either an agency you work with separately or internally by a marketing team or by agents themselves. But I will say this, I've seen it over and over and over again. The world of paid online advertising at scale, like really real budgets, right? Not like boosting posts, but like ongoing $10,000 a month kind of budgets. Those should be managed by a professional regardless. A real estate agent, a team leader, a broker, like in no way, time, shape, form, whatever, should they be trying to be a professional digital marketer at this point. It's too complicated. It's a real business. It's a real industry on its own. And when I've seen people get to where they're like, oh, it's just digital marketing, I kind of respond to that to say, oh, it's just real estate, right? So, and every time a real estate professional is like, no, you have to work with an agent. There's contracts, there's negotiations. You don't know all the fine print, all the things that can go wrong, right? It's the same conversation you have with somebody that wants to list their own home. It's the same way I talk about it when they want to do like really next level digital advertising or PPC. Learning it takes years. Doing it well is a professional craft, right? So I say either you can't moonlight as a real estate agent too well, you can't moonlight as a digital marketer too well. You end up not doing either too well. So I say focus your energy on doing what you do best and outsource the rest. It's standard leverage 101. So would you say the major inflection point where you as a business owner need to pivot to using outside agency is around 10,000, north of 10,000 a month? Yeah, I mean, I threw that out. It's a bit arbitrary, but it's when if you think about the budget as a function of, or it's a correlation to the size of your team or your business, if you're trying to generate hundreds of leads on a monthly basis, that's next level, right? You should be thinking about that from a more professional perspective.
And
that could be in-house.
Do you think there's a certain brokerage size where you can outgrow one of these, out of the off-the-shelf type CRMs like BoomTown, Chime, Sierra?
I do, in a sense. I think from a team perspective, I rarely see a team needing to expand out of the, like, what I call the third-party SaaS, off-the-shelf products. It's kind of like this. I look at it like the evolution is you start with one or two of these products, you start outgrowing that, you add on some others, and with APIs and companies, like RealSync and things that can tie these modular systems together. When you outgrow that approach, you typically, I don't say get rid of those products like your CRM or whatever, or BoomTown or whatever that might be. You then might need to think about bringing in something like Salesforce or a next level enterprise type of product that all these things could plug into, right? It's not like replacing what you already have per se. Does that make sense?
Sure. So let's say, you've got this powerhouse team who need to generate not hundreds, but thousands of leads. And you're spending, high six figures in advertising.
Yeah.
And you've got, the BoomTown sites and Chimes and Sierras, they're all really well optimized for buyer lead generation. And the home value lead gen stuff is okay. But should you spin up another WordPress site that's more branded to your team that can play off of other campaigns you might be running?
Yeah. I think that is a good point. And what I do, what we do at the agency for helping people in that situation is a lot of times, right, they don't necessarily outgrow the back-end functionality of one of these products, right? The CRM, marketing automation, tracking, accountability, broker dashboards, texting functionality, all those things, they're built to scale. But the front end of these websites are typically templated, right? You can customize, but they're not custom. So what we see is people evolve their brand to the point where they're like, I'm no longer this little team. I have X% market share in my area. I need more flexibility for my website, my digital presence of my brand. Then we typically see them spinning up a standalone brand experience website. That can be everything from putting its own IDX in there. But typically what we see is they'll spin something up that is pure brand, maybe featured listings and things like that. And then you strategically link that back into your IDX website that's optimized for lead gen. That's really the progression there. But then you want to do everything you can to keep funneling those brand generated leads into your existing CRM, right? You don't want to stand up another CRM for that and your brand and your PPC, something else. That's when you get all these disparate systems. That's when your data starts getting fragmented and your systems and your operations start getting fragmented. So, you just need to be mindful of that as you're expanding to ensure that core under the hood kind of operational infrastructure of your business isn't getting fragmented as a result of your growth.
Let me ask you something, and there's no limitation on the answer to this. I want the honest answer. So if, let's say, for example, you're building this mega team, maybe you're an independent broker using the team model, you provide lots of leads and you're doing really well. You're making really good money. Your team's doing great and you're trying to take things to the next level. Mm-hmm. And let's say you are competing in a market where you've got a company like Redfin, for example. Mm-hmm. And Redfin has got this incredibly robust website, right? The website is incredibly robust. They've got, I don't even know how many developers working on it. And, it's really, really good. So how much would it cost if you were to try to build a version of the Redfin site with that, for your business so that you could, organically rank really high and have just as good of results with this site that's branded to your company versus one of these out-of-the-box solutions? Is there a way to create a copy without having to spend millions and millions of dollars?
I would say yes. It's going to be six figures. But I also would say,
put a number on it. How much would you have to spend to build some version of Redfin?
Let's put a number. Let's maybe flip it around. And I think Redfin has an annual technology budget of like $100 million, right? You're not going to compete with that. Zillow is the same, right? I mean, that's just the reality. It's not so much that you couldn't create a compelling brand, property search experience for even $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. How do you get people to change their user behavior if they're used to going to Redfin? If they're used to, everybody's going to use the Zillow app. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Yeah. What we have always said, and in my time at BoomTown, and I still say it, that you need to have a compelling digital experience for your brand that is at least commensurate with a Redfin, a Zillow, that level of website consumer experience. Because at some point, unless you're working with a Redfin agent as a consumer, you do need to jump into from I'm a consumer looking for real estate, top of the funnel, that next level down is I want to see a house. Something has happened where I want to engage with the agent, with the broker, with the team. At that point, they're going to move into your sphere, whether they do that through a third-party website. At that point, you need to get them to start using your website, right? Because then you can track things together, communicate.
Let me ask you a question. So when I think about first there's the first question that came to mind is, how do you change the behavior of the consumer so they start using your website and your app versus Zillow and Redfin? And something I think about frequently is yes, Zillow and Redfin do a great job with SEO and they rank organically and they drive a lot of traffic. But I wonder frequently, if in fact the way they actually originate a lot of their traffic is a function of their TV ads.
Oh, absolutely. And in the markets where they are, absolutely.
And so it makes me wonder, instead of spending money on SEO and all of these other things, why not just pour the money into TV advertising to push traffic to your website, just like Zillow does, to have just as equivalent quality traffic as Zillow? And then the other thing you can set up with your site is non-forced registration. So you have really high conversion rates and your agents aren't working 100 leads to close one or two deals.
I think I'm a big fan, as much of a digital, OG that I am. I think blended marketing and advertising channels are absolutely the way to go. If you can afford to do TV, billboard, strategic print, mailers, etc. And then it's not at the expense of doing the paid online advertising. I think you should be doing as much or all of it as you can. You need to be able to track as much or all of it as you can. And I think that when in terms of forced registration, you need to have the capabilities almost to say, if it's coming from this source, if it's coming from a TV or an ad, that you could potentially put into a landing page experience that might be a vanity domain or a specific landing page URL, or some sort of short code text or something like that can send a consumer from a branded type of ad into a non-squeeze forced registration site experience versus somebody that explicitly types in Austin, Texas, homes for sale with a zip code or something, right? Put them straight into property search and squeeze them, right? They've explicitly said, I want to come look at property in this. They've raised their hand and said, right? But if they just come in searching for your brand, you don't know what they want. So let them look around a little bit, or maybe only keep the squeeze on 10 property views, right? Or something like that. But don't squeeze them the second they get to your website. But as a lead generation person, you need to have strategic carrots all over your digital presence in order for them to get in touch with you. And that should be forms, should be downloads potentially, newsletter signups, follows and likes of your social, call tracking. That's a huge one people forget about, is use call tracking phone numbers, right? Don't just use the same phone number on all your websites and all your materials. Use 10 different phone numbers that are each correlating to the various channels that you're doing marketing and advertising for, because you don't, if you're only using one phone number, you don't know, like if you're not tracking it, you're leaving a lot of data on the table. I think that's the most important lead you can get if somebody is actually picking up the phone to call you.
I love that. So one of my favorite systems is CallRail.
CallRail's great.
Track that stuff.
Yep.
Man, there's so many questions I have about this. I mean, I'm probably like everybody else. I love the lead generation, lead conversion stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think it's worth the money to like create your own app on the iTunes store and brand it to your brokerage?
I don't. Not at this point. I think it's very difficult for people to get people to download your app in the first place.
Yeah.
I think a good, solid mobile, optimized mobile responsive type of website experience is essential. It's not a nice to have. You have to have it. But I think building an app is expensive, and then somebody's got to keep it up to date and keep it, up to best practices. When you can work with, let's just call it like it is. Everybody's using Zillow and Redfin and that anyway. The happy medium there is maybe like a HomeSpotter or something, right? Where you can get a white label kind of branded brokerage or team app experience. If you want people to use it, it's worth a shot. But I mean, most of the systems, I think even BoomTown's developing something now, are going to have something for you to use. So unless you've got a really compelling reason to build your own app, I don't think it's going to be much value from a consumer perspective if it's just the same as any of the other apps for property search and saving properties.
So if I'm hearing you right, the ship has sailed. Your chance of like creating an app and trying to use that as a competitive advantage is not going to be compelling enough.
Not going to be compelling. I don't think so. Not for the cost.
Yeah. So you've managed an insane amount of money over the course of your career. What? Yeah. Hundreds of millions in ad spend at this point?
Yes.
So what are some commonalities you see in the SEO, AdWords, social media world that are driving the highest ROI for companies? Is it like long-tailed keyword campaigns? Is it what is the most exciting thing in your opinion getting the best returns for companies?
I'll tell you what. Actually calling and following up the leads you generate regardless of source. That's the best way to get ROI. There's a reason, like literally the data supports it across, whether it was with BoomTown or Zillow or any of these sources, 50% of the leads go completely unengaged with, even for people that are paying for them. That's why you had Zillow Flex and OpCity and these other things start to pop up where they're like, you're paying for these leads. You're giving us a bad name. You're giving your own brand a bad name because you never follow up with these people. So people are kind of taking them back and following up with them on your behalf. So there's my little soapbox on that. Call your leads, so regardless of where they come from. But
so do you believe though there are certain like keywords, like string of keywords, for example, that yield higher ROIs?
I was going to say, let's maybe break it down by channel. Okay. So with pure paid search, what I have found, and I've bet on millions of keywords across the real estate world, people still are looking for homes for sale in city, state, right? You can run a variation of homes for sale, real estate for sale, properties for sale, condos for sale, townhomes for sale. With the way the systems are built now from a keyword matching perspective, building out hundreds of thousands of 7 and 8 keyword phrase, kind of 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Austin, Texas with a pool. The amount of traffic that one phrase is going to get is so small that sometimes they don't even show the keyword.
So with digital ad campaigns, the broad stroke keyword strings are going to do more than enough to generate enough leads for you.
Yeah, because unless you have crap ton of money to spend in paid search, it's not really worth the effort to build out all those long tail terms. And the way that Google matches keywords, they're going to pretty much pull everything in, including misspellings and like the way that they have kind of AI powered interpretation of what somebody might be typing in. You're going to pull in pretty much everything that you want. I think that's, paid search should always be part of the mix. But I think that it's not everything. But so paid search kind of fits down the middle of the funnel. It's like I'm explicitly telling you what I'm looking for. So if that sits in the middle, at the top would be something like Facebook or even remarketing or display ads, right? The same way you would treat at the top of the funnel might be a billboard or a radio ad. It's just like, here's my brand, here's who I am. That's going to drive people into search or into your website. That next level down would be something like Facebook or Instagram, where you can do targeted based on an area or based on an audience list from your database that you already have, right? You can create lookalikes. That's still not quite as explicit as somebody saying, I'm looking for property in this area for this, this type of zip code or bedrooms or whatever, right? That's kind of how it works. So display, social, search, and then the bottom of the funnel would be probably somebody that's already interacted with your brand and they're, picking up the phone to call you, or they're sending you a direct message on something. And I'll say this from a cost perspective, especially right now, that Facebook, Instagram level cost is going to be lower than search, right? So the higher the quality or the more explicit the intention of the consumer, typically the cost of that lead is higher. And that's why you see something like a Zillow or even a realtor.com, those portal leads are probably the most expensive because they're not being squeezed. They're proactively, of their own volition saying, I want you to contact me, or I'm going to contact you directly. That's typically the best lead. But what we've found, or what I've found over the last couple of years, is if your Zillow lead is pushing $500 a lead, that gets hard to start stomaching the ROI capabilities of something like that. If, just because it came from Zillow or one of the portals doesn't mean that it's still not maybe a kind of somebody that's 2 years out.
What do you think so it sounds, it's from what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, a whole lot hasn't changed since 10 years ago. So
not really.
What would you say have been the greatest innovations on the lead generation front in the last couple of years? And what are you most excited about from a marketer's perspective in the years to come?
Yeah, I think the biggest change has definitely been audience-based advertising. The capability to use your database to create strategic advertising to your database through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Google, etc. And then the capability to create lookalike audiences from that. That has been the biggest game changer since AdWords, since keyword-based search came out. That ability to remarket to your database. But I'll say this, that's not a standalone. It can be a standalone tactic, but it's got to be part of more of a three-dimensional approach, right? The way that search, social, email, phone calls, remarketing, all of those things have to work together. And you have to have the right technology and systems and protocols in place to make it work together and maximize the new ecosystem we have online. And I'll say this, like, if your database is where you make money, right? That's where you print money. The bigger the database, the more capabilities you have to email, to text, to call, to create audiences, to create lookalikes, right? People get wrapped up in all the digital marketing and advertising and they forget there's just a means to an end to fill that database.
If somebody hates calling leads,
it shouldn't be in real estate.
They shouldn't be in real estate?
It shouldn't be. No, man. Well, I mean, they shouldn't.
Some of that, I feel like some of the hacks are you can outsource the prospecting.
Yeah.
And when you get somebody teed up, right, that's like ready to go through an ISA or whatever, that's one way.
Yeah.
There's like these AI powered texting bots that are really good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to like nurture the leads. So I guess that's kind of what I was alluding to.
Yeah, I think rookie agents should all be calling leads, right? It's even just to get over your fear of calling leads. Nurturing leads is one thing, right? So that is where you've got chat bots and you've got things like, ISAs or even using Opcity or Real Contact or whatever, top of the funnel mass lead qualification. if you've got the money and the time or whatever to invest in it, you absolutely should. I'm a firm believer at this point that the agent should be talking to people that are ready to get going, right? Ready to get in the car, whatever that version of that would be right now, but ready to start talking about property in a serious way. That's how you get it from a team perspective. You operationalize the whole thing. And so if that front end is ISA, chatbots, automated calls and texts, for sure. But at a certain point, you got to get on the phone.
What is it? There's lots of people out there generating leads for agents and marketing agencies, and not a whole lot has changed in the last 10 years. So what differentiates one marketing company from another that's offering a service to real estate agents?
That's a good question. There are still some people are better at doing advertising online than others, the same way people are better at negotiating a deal than others, right? So the ability to write good ad copy, the ability to create good visual assets, display assets and videos, radio jingles, whatever. I think there's the art and science to it. The art is a more compelling and creative message and visual, compelling experience. The science is the ability to truly manage digital advertising in a modern way and having the right technology and experience and expertise to do it. It's just like anything. It's not as cut and dry or black and white, and it used to be, it's like, you had $10,000, you put all of it in search and you just let it go. Now you've got to be able to manage that budget based on ROI, based on cost per lead. And that's maybe across Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, email, paid search, display, remarketing. You've got to be able to know how to massage those budgets in a way that creates the best ROI and the best cost per lead volume, if you will. And even more than that, you've got to understand and be able to capture the data to make those decisions, right? So there's, again, art and science to it, where you've got to have the right tracking capabilities, the right dashboards, the right operational technology things under the hood that are able to close that loop so that I know that I'm closing more deals from this channel versus this one. And then I'm going to shift my budgets accordingly. It's just not as cut and dry as it used to be. Are
you familiar with Russell Brunson and his funnels?
Yes.
So could you imagine creating info-based products for consumers and creating a funnel, starting with a $7 product and then $100 product and then a $500 product, and you're able to basically zero base your client acquisition cost. And when you get to the people at the top of the funnel, you've got a really high quality prospect that wants to buy or sell. Is that possible? And why have I not seen anybody do that successfully?
As far as what is the product being sold? What do you mean?
Yeah. So if you think about the funnels that people make using ClickFunnels, let's say, for example, it's somebody that's got a fitness coaching business. They might start off selling a product to a cold audience that has no clue who they are, that costs $7. And then there's an upsell for 27. And then another one for 100. And then the ultimate product they want to get them to after they built a bridge.
A 3-day on-site, $25,000 workshop, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I think in real estate, I think it's tough. Because maybe it's not as tough now, but you've got to be in the mindset that if you're going to, productize an offering for a service such as real estate, you've got to be willing to almost a la carte your services, right? It's you just want somebody to read your contract for you, it's this. But, you want the full listing presentation, the full thing, it's 6% commission. You could get creative with that, but I don't know if consumers want to hear that as far as real estate goes.
Okay, so hypothetical, you create some products that are very inexpensive at a low price.
Yep.
And you run Facebook ads pushing products to people likely to potentially purchase. And you're running white paper reports and stuff like that for people that are going through specific life events that are triggering them to want to buy or sell. So maybe it's a guide on navigating the sale of your home through divorce or through probate or whatever. And, and so that you've got like this white paper deal that gets you the lead, and then you upsell that lead, like a course on how to navigate it for $97.
Yep.
And then you run a live workshop people can plug into for $500.
Yep.
And then at the live workshop, you pitch your services as an agent. So like, that's what I would envision in my head as a funnel to get people in the door. Like, would a consumer?
I think as long as the thing you're selling progressively is not completely self-serving, right? That it's actually something of value that maybe is independent of what you actually sell as your services. It's really informational, or we're going to help you navigate the real estate world through a divorce or following a death or something like that. As long as it's not like explicitly at every turn, like, oh yeah, and you got to hire me to do it for you, and you should work with an agent. It's like, as long as it's coming from a place of true value offering, I think it could potentially work.
Why do you think nobody's done this yet?
Well, I think from my experience is, number one, building out the content is difficult. And you probably know as well as I do, real estate agents like to talk about a lot of this kind of stuff. But, if you say, well, this is going to take a couple months to build the content, then you've got to get a designer, you got to build the landing pages and all that, that's typically where they kind of like, I'm just going to go back to like just chasing my leads down.
Do you think with the changes that Facebook put in place, now that they've removed some of those targeting options, it would make this more difficult?
I think so. I think it comes down to, if you've got the database, it's almost like, how do you do more for the people you've already captured? I almost look at it like lead gen should be focused on growth, right? If you need to start growing your business, you're adding a team, you're putting more fuel to the fire, right? That's when you ramp up your lead gen, your paid, proactive, intentional new lead gen activities. Once your database gets to a few thousand people, you should really be hammering back into the database. That's the way I look at it. That's where something like this comes into play, where you are emailing your database about these products that you've got, right? You're not necessarily having to go out and get cold traffic from a lead generation perspective. I think that's where you're going to see more value for something like that, where you've already got some recognition and name value.
What's your favorite piece of tech out there right now as somebody who's not an agent, but you see that could contribute a lot of value to somebody's business to help them convert more leads?
I think that if you've got the volume, like when you talk about lead conversion, I think something like Call Action or Agent Legend, those kind of hybrid AI-ish powered ISA kind of services that can allow you to communicate with hundreds, if not thousands of leads at any given moment. I think those are the best for lead conversion from somebody that's a lead and getting them to convert into an actual conversation, right? When it comes to like converting them to a closed deal, I think so something like that would be on the front end. I think on the back end, it's anything that's creating more transparency during the closing process. Because I'm a big advocate for that certain, like, real estate agents are really good at talking to leads, getting them to commit to, negotiating, looking at houses, all that fun stuff. And then a house goes under contract, and all of a sudden, like, the consumer's like, wait, there's an attorney and a mortgage professional and title and appraisals and inspections and all this other stuff's going on. And they're kind of always waiting for like that 30 to 60 day period. You're always waiting for something to go wrong. The appraisal to get bad, the mortgage to fall through, inspection to be horrible, right? And they don't really know what's going on. And a good agent should be keeping them up to speed on things. But a lot of times agents, let's call it what it is, they're salespeople. Once that deal goes into contract, they're kind of like, all right, you're with the transaction coordinator now, and good luck. I'm being a little bit extreme there, but I think that the technologies like what's it called, Qualia, I believe, jet closing, pre-close, even things like BrokerMent and, that have like collaborative dashboard or experience communication platforms for the closing process, the transaction process. I think that's going to be a huge win. Yes, you've already converted them because they're under contract, but you talk about that experience they're going to remember. If that closing experience is bad, who are they going to blame? They're going to blame you, the agent. If it's good, who are they going to blame and remember? You, the agent. So from a long-term business value creation, I think that's where agents should be spending a lot of their time now, especially. It's a scary time. It's when the rubber meets the road in any real estate transaction is during that phase. All the other stuff's kind of fun. It's when the consumer is in that transaction phase that they're the most worried. And I think that's when the agent really needs to step up from a communication and transparency perspective. And I think that's on the buyer side and on the seller side, So that's my 2 cents there. You're gonna close more deals in the long run if you take that part of the transaction seriously.
I got one last question for you. What's the biggest common mistake you see people make in the real estate brokerage industry when it comes to lead generation? Obviously not related to phone calls, but just marketing specific, generating leads. What's the biggest, most common mistake you see people making?
I don't think it's in the actual physical generation of the leads themselves. It's having, especially in the broker world, having too many technologies in place potentially, right? Or not having the right protocols in place for when leads do come in the door, and having accountability metrics, being able to measure those things, being able to see that data, to truly understand where the ROI is, adoption of the tools, engagement rates from the agents. Those are the things that really close deals and get people into the funnel, right? So I don't think it's like we said, if you're doing online advertising, you're only doing it through a few sources. That's just the way of the world now. It's that next step. Once they get in the door, is there a proper process that ensures that every lead is being engaged with, that there's tracking of everything coming in the door, that which agents are doing the best, with those leads. Like a lot of time brokers, because margins are thin and agents are fickle and change brokerages and things like that, they're just kind of like give them bare bones infrastructure and operational help. I think if you step that up and you can get the agents to actually use the products and adopt them, that's where those conversion rates go through the roof. That's why teams do so well, right? They're kind of bought into the team model. They have operationalized infrastructure that's supported by tech along the way. And they've got quality controls and they've got somebody monitoring all these things. And that's why teams, typically we're seeing more and more, growth from teams. And I think if you're going to try to compete with, a Redfin, an Open Door, these very tech-powered brokerage solutions out there, you have to be thinking about how the technology is supporting the lead gen efforts, right? Generating leads is easy. I mean, in the grand scheme of things. What you do after that is the hard part. And that's where most people drop the ball.
So Rivers, you're a unique individual in the industry, given your time in the industry and the amount of money you've spent. Where can people go to learn more about the digital marketing agency you've started?
Yeah. So,
the last part is I want to know, what's your ideal avatar of a customer? So where can they find you and what's your ideal avatar?
Cool. Yep. So the agency is called Waitless, and it's W8, LESS. The website is gowaitless.com. And I can send this over to you to post later.
Where'd that idea come from for the name?
So I do a lot of presentations and keynotes and things like that. And one of the topics I've been using in the last couple of years has been around, if you think about Amazon, Uber, Netflix, those kinds of things, that even like your Starbucks app, those technologies are so integrated into the way we live our lives now that they feel weightless, right? They just feel seamless. And so I've been using that as when I say to real estate professionals, I'm like, when you take a consumer who's used to the world we live in, and then you're making them come into your office and sign paperwork like with a pen and those kinds of things, you're asking them to time travel almost, right? Like they shouldn't have to do those things if they don't want to. At least you should have the option for them that the way you do your business and the technology used to power your business for consumers and for agents should feel as weightless as Amazon or Uber or Google or Starbucks or any of those things. So it's a term and a concept I've been using from an educational standpoint. And when I decided to do my own thing and start an agency, I was like, that's just where I went with it. So, it's the world we live in, and real estate, I think now, in response to what's going on in the world currently, that there's a light shining on that now even more. And so we specialize in not only digital marketing and advertising, but also tech stack management, technology strategy, consultation, and integration work. How do you create that infrastructure behind your business that makes the leads you generate more profitable for you, makes your agents more productive, gives you more insight into your data and tracking capabilities there? So what was the last question?
Your ideal avatar.
Yeah. The perfect client for us is either a broker, a small to mid-size or large broker, a team leader, especially a team, a growing team, maybe a single agent that really is trying to go to the next level. But typically brokers and teams. And then we also, though, work with technology companies. So we work with SaaS companies or tech companies that are either A, looking to get into the real estate space and need consultation on how to message and speak to a realtor about their new product, or a company is looking to expand into, say, working with just brokerages into working with teams. How would they go about doing something like that? So we work with companies that are looking to position themselves well and or sell into the real estate space as well.
Cool. What's the next big event you'll be at where you're going to do a keynote? Do you have one on the books yet?
I was supposed to be doing a big thing at BoomTown's Unite conference this week, tomorrow. That's not happening. The only thing, no. I don't have anything on the books right now. Everything's been canceled. So
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Rivers, I want to thank you for coming on CEO Secrets. I'm excited for your new venture, and I've always appreciated just the enormous amount of value you add to the industry to help educate agents, around lead conversion. I already checked out your site, Go Waitless, GOW8, the number 8, LESS.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you who made that site because it's really sharp looking.
We made it.
Yeah. So thanks for being on CEO Secrets. I definitely want to follow up and ask you some additional questions offline specific to my group. But best of luck in your new venture. I have no doubt it's going to be wildly successful. And I hope to consider myself a customer.
Me too. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, buddy. Always good to see you.
Likewise. Thanks, Rivers.